Okay, so welcome everyone. We have a good group here from all over the state. So we're so glad you're here with us. I'm sitting in for Ernie today. He's on the line, but in his car. So we figured we wanted him to get to his destination safely. And so I'm going to do the little introduction for FLATEs, but we're here for a webinar about local articulations that Sam Ajlani is going to provide for us. But first, we're going to spend a little time just kind of reviewing what FLATE is for those of you who don't know, and reviewing for others what things you might not remember in some upcoming events and activities we're involved in. So first of all, our mission is just to make Florida's workforce for manufacturing the best it can be, to support manufacturing across the state and all the related industries that use those same technologies. So for us, it's engineering technologies in the K-12, high schools, technical and community and state colleges, all of the probably baccalaureate degrees, except those that we focus on for transferring our 2-year graduates into 4-year programs when they decide that's what they want to do and go on for their education. But anyway, we spend a lot of time doing that through a bunch of different ways. We move forward, Teresa. Are you changing the slides?
I think she's froze up.
She might be froze up. I don't know.
You might be able to take control or no.
Yeah, I don't know because I'm not. She's got them.
Uh-oh. I think she dropped out.
Yep.
Okay, let me get the.
So Daniele's now the host, so she can beat you up.
Are you loading the or sharing the presentation, Daniele?
Oh, I can't hear you, Danielle. You're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, I don't have the latest slides.
Oh no, wait. Looks like Teresa came
He's
back.
back. Hi, Teresa.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. That's okay. Just move. I had a couple of slides. Can you go back one? Oh no, wait a minute. I'm on the wrong one. I was just opening my slides to get there.
Plan B.
You got kicked out.
Yeah, right. You have to kick out the host. That's terrible. All right. So we generally work through our community of state and community colleges. This is a map showing all of those that are involved in the engineering technology degree, but we work with others trying to add this program, and also with, of course, their K-12 partners and their industry partners. And now that we're a part of the Florida Makes Network, we also work with those manufacturers that may not be on local advisory boards, but are still interested in working with the educational system in our state. So we've kind of expanded our efforts there. In that regard, we spend a lot of time trying to help manufacturers figure out how to interact with schools and how to find some of the programs they might want to target in their particular area. We encourage them to do that and interact with them in a number of ways. Most of you know all of these things. Participate in Manufacturing Month, help with competitions, visit to colleges, host tours, lots of those kinds of things, advisory committees that we encourage them and try to partner them directly with the people who are engaged in their area to get them started. Getting into schools is sometimes quite challenging. It's a lot of barriers for being there. So we try to help them with that process. So some of the things that we do to facilitate that, you'll see some of those activities mentioned here again. We do have our educator awards. We like them to participate in judging. We have a nice group of kind of ongoing team of judges, but always interested in more industry partners and sponsoring those manufacturing educators awards. And just by the way, those nominations for those awardees at secondary and post-secondary level and a community or industry partner are open right now till sometime soon. Danielle, you'll put a link, looks like, in there.
Yes, I just
text for you.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of activities directly with school, and we just try to promote those as much as possible. so we have some of our own upcoming events. So we're doing a series of webinars this spring on topics that the educators told us they were interested in and wanted to hear about. So hopefully we'll get a good response for these, including the one today on local articulations. Next up in the 1st of February will be work-based learning opportunities. You know, what do they look like? How can we do more of that? What really counts as work-based learning opportunities? And then you'll see the rest of those recruiting strategies. That's students, of course, in that case. And then a more technical one towards the end of March on the 24th, robots and AI, Industry 4.0 training and demonstrations. A colleague from Polk State will be presenting that, and quite an expert in robotics, actually, so that should be great. And then using videos to create classroom projects and using those to help sell your program and illustrate to industry what exactly your students learn and what they're capable of when they get through the program. There's still a lot of companies that don't know what 2-year technical programs can provide for them as far as their workforce, that 1 or 2 levels above the unskilled labor coming in, entering their facilities. All right, next, a few more things. We're having posting a hands-on workshop at HCC. This probably isn't the best description for it, but it's around a mechatronics program that focuses on electronics, motors and controls, PLCs, sensors, and industrial processes. And the group that's going to go through build the trainers, and everyone who comes will get a take home of the trainer that they build, as one of the 4-part series that they're using. This is in Nebraska and Minnesota, to connect to their high schools through a kind of innovative remote access program for dual enrollment, where they're reaching 4 or 5 schools at a time with one faculty of record at the college and doing all of the transmission remotely. So that'll be at HCC. You can register for that now on our website. If you're interested, there's no cost. There's just, you have to be able to take home your trainer when you get done. And then our spring ET forum will be at Daytona State at the end of March. We're also working with the FNUC Robotics Day. I'm not sure if this is the correct title, but they're hosting an all-day session on robotics at the College of Central Florida, where Sam is from, on April 21st. It's a one-day event they're hosting for industry, educators, the community, whoever's interested in learning more about robotics. I think Sam knows a little bit more about what the agenda will look like, but we'll have some industry folks talk to us, as well as some educators that are using robotics in their classrooms. I think those are in the greater Ocala area that will be sharing their stories. So that should be another good one-day event. April 21st is a Friday. And then in the summer, in June for a week, we'll have a summer teacher training academy at St. Pete College, the engineering technology program there with Sid Martin will be hosting that. And that's not available right now for registration, but it will be soon. If you're interested, you can email any of us, and we'll let you know specifically when registration is open.
What topics are going to be on that one? Do you know?
Well, I guess I don't know. I think
Okay.
we've talked about a number of things, and after the cyber workshop, we were thinking of including some of those topics instead. So robotics for one, quality and measurement for another, some 3D printing, and then probably some cyber.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, and here's resources you can find online for our FLATE website, our Made in Florida website. That's targeted at pretty much just outreach about manufacturing in the state and career opportunities, what jobs in manufacturing look like. All our Manufacturing Month activities are housed on that site. And our wiki, which is more an educational focused place where we have some lesson plan, a lot of lesson plans, I would say, in some different categories. And our 2 video resources are Women in Manufacturing video and lesson plans, all of our previous presentations and workshop information, and some information about summer camps that we developed a few years ago to help people get started with summer robotics and energy camps. So please visit those sites and find something you can use. There's lots of stuff there. All right, so now I'll turn over to the main player for the day, Sam Ajlani, who's going to talk to us from the College of Central Florida about local articulation. So take it away,
All
Sam.
right. Well, mine's going to be more about all articulations, but
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be working on. Let me see. How do I do this? Let me just share that. I don't know. See if it'll work. Can y'all see that? I don't know if it's, I can't tell if it's sharing or not.
It's sharing. It's-
Okay, good. Let me see if I can get it to work now. There we go. Yay. They're trying to get in.
Perfect.
All right, let's just talk about articulations, and really what we're trying to do with articulations, of course, all of us are, is to attract more high school students to your programs. That's the whole goal of articulations between the high school and the 2-year college. There's several articulations out there and types of articulations. So I just kind of want to brief you through how this is going to work. So let's just talk about articulations in general. It's just a contract. That's all it is between the high schools and whatever school system you're in, and the colleges. That's really what it is. What it does is basically allow you to transfer some of the high school, I call them credits, but it's really clock hour based training to into some college credits, and that may be based on some certifications or work completed at the high school. Depends on what type of an articulation you're talking about here. So we're going to get into that here in just a couple of minutes. It allows students entering a college program to graduate a lot faster, right? Because if they already have credits in, and in some cases, I know in one of my cases, they're already almost close to a 2 semesters out, taken off. So if they do it in 5 semesters, now they can do it in almost 3 semesters, which is almost a little over a year. They'd be done, maybe 4, that kind of thing. So it does speed up the process quite a bit. Contracts are usually initiated and completed by the college pathway person. So every college should have a pathway person, that's involved, or have somebody that has that responsibility. It may not be an individual focused on that 100%, but there's usually a pathway person. And what they do is once you decide what you want to do, they'll help articulate whatever your courses and credits that are supposed to be in, they will go through. So you will let a student know that they need to either contact the pathways person, or you'll present the credentials to the pathway person, and they will handle it in getting the credit transferred in. That's generally the way we do it here. Selection of the credits is by the program manager if it's a local one, okay? And that's important to you because colleges, you have specific standards that you want your students to get. So if you have somebody who's coming up with some certification that you actually use too, then that makes it really easy to articulate courses in, whether they're registered at the state or not. That's the local, is what you decide you want to do. So they're being both used at the college and high school. That makes it a real easy articulation to put together. And then generally when you're done, the pathway persons will take it. And I'm going to show you kind of a flow chart on this a little bit later. But the contracts are generally officially signed by the college and the high school system, or individual high school, depending on how you guys are set up. So if it's a private school, it might be the private school. If it's a public school, it'll be probably the school system. Those kinds of things. And yes, I'd love to have articulations with private schools. You're going to find out some of those students coming out are really heavily research type students, so that really helps a lot. Also, homeschool as well are pretty good too, if they can get any certifications. Let's talk a little bit about the types of articulations next. There are just basically statewide articulations. Here's an example of one. If I can get it to pull up, I had a little trouble with this. Nope, not going to let me do it on this one. Let me see if I can right click in on. Let me do it this way. I'm going to end the show. I'm going to double click on it and see if it'll open up. This is one that's a statewide articulation. This goes to the electronics technology to electronics engineering technology. I know some of the schools out there do have this program going on. And if you have a local high school that has an electronics technology program, which is 1,400 clock hours, it's this specific program, then this articulation has a minimum agreement of 15 credit hours towards your associate degree. And, it might be in like the, I know we do, for ET, we do, the survey of electronics. Then when I get into my electronics specialization, I've got DC, AC, solid state. And, by the time I put those together, I've got my 15 hours. And those are the kind of things that you could, if they cover that in the high school program, you could actually award them that many credit hours. But it is a minimum. So you're going to have to pick those minimum courses that they're studying to do. And it's usually those basic electronic courses that you generally teach. And this just kind of gives you an idea. These are out on the FLDOE website. And if you land on the homepage and scroll down, there is a career and technical education part of it. If you click on that, open it up, there's several columns, and one of them does have all these articulations listed in there. I was going to go through all that, but I decided it takes a little bit, maybe a little bit too much time, but I can show it to you later if we need to show anything. Let's see. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was for me. I'm sorry. All right. And so I guess someone's monitoring the chat for, I'm hoping for the questions or anything. And hopefully
Yes,
we
we'll
hold
monitor
it.
it.
Yeah, we'll hold it, most of the questions till the end, please. Now, on the statewide articulations, there are no articulations specifically for ET programs. So we don't really have much to do that unless you want to use the electronic specialization and try to use this toward that. Remember, you can do pretty much what you want at your own college, but there are some state articulations that are required, like the gold standard pathways. Here are the ones for the ET program I was able to pull up. You have the MSSC CPT as well as the CLT as well. That one's also out there if you have a logistics program. But for ET specifically, it is the CPT. There are a few of us that, and I'm trying to get it started fall, is the supply chain technician. And I know I'm using the TRA classes, the transportation courses from my AS and supply chain, and the CLT would translate into one there as a local articulation or gold standard articulation that is out there. But for ET specifically, these are the ones that you have. So it's MSSC, Certified Production Technician, the SolidWorks Associate or Professional, AutoCAD user in several of the packages like Inventor, Revit, all that, and AutoCAD specifically. And then just about all the professional certificates can articulate in. And then you've got like Associate Certificate of Electronics, the CETA, which I think is the basic level, will articulate in as well. And the NIMS, believe it or not, machine level 2 grinding skills is the only one that is associated with the ET, where you're required, if you have a program, you are required to bring it in and do it. So these are kind of requirements. What I did is I pulled up, got to go back again. It's a little harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought it would just click and open, but I guess it's not going to. So this one here is the Certified Production Technician. It's a gold career pathway statewide articulation. Minimum in the AS program is 15 hours, no matter what ET specialization you've got to credit them 15 hours of credit. And normally most of us are doing that in our core classes. And the reason I even mention any of this stuff here is if someone comes with the MSSC CPT to your program, maybe from a high school, I have one high school who's the top producing here in Ocala in the state. And I take, 7 or 8 of those a year or something like that. And I end up getting, I'm having to articulate 15 hours somewhere. Some I like articulating, some I don't. But all my electives, because I have electives in my program, or higher tech level electives, so I really don't have much else I can articulate in. And I know we're talking about making a change on this to maybe drop it down to 12, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. But this is one that you have to do. You don't have a choice. The thing about it is, if it was issued over 3 years ago, you do not have to articulate it. So it has to be done if they got the CPT within 3 years. If they don't, then you don't have to articulate the courses, but you can. You can through a local articulation, which is kind of what I'm going to be talking about next. And this is the basis of what we're here today for, local articulations. Okay, let me pull this one. Local articulations are articulations that you go to a high school or school where you can bring courses they're teaching that are similar to yours. For example, if they're doing automation and you have advanced manufacturing, they're very closely related. They'll do electrical, they'll do mechanical, they'll do hydraulics. They may do, PLCs and things like that. Another one would be the power generation. They do motors and controls, they do PLCs, they do, those are type of things that you can go to that school and visit and see what they're doing and see what the clock hours are. And you can find out exactly what these students are doing and articulate specific things into your program. Okay. And when I say specific, they have to complete that, automation or power generation. And then, you're covered that they did get these hours in on PLCs or motor controls. And so a question to everyone is, how many clock hours do we need to put in for, credit hours? Does anybody know? I know Marilyn knows. Does anybody actually know what that is? All right, Marilyn, do you want to tell them?
Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I think the hours for a course in the schools, like a
Right.
semester course, is 150, right?
Right. I think it's about 150 hours of their time would equal about 45 hours of what supposedly what we do as a credit hour. They've got a conversion on that, right? So with that said, imagine you're putting 45 hours. Well, my courses, I do a lot more than 45 hours because I have a lot of stuff they have to do outside of the coursework. So I like more hours if I can get it. And so I look at how many hours they spend, how many programs they write. If I'm doing a PLC, for example, and what programs are they before I will articulate myself some credit back. And the only reason I did that is before I started articulating, I would have students come in who had already done everything I've shown them. I said, well, where'd you do this? He says, well, when I was in, the automation program over here, we did all these programs you're showing me right here. Here, I'll give them to you. Yeah, and then he hands me everything completed. I'm like, well, what heck, it's crazy you even took the class then. And then that's when I started realizing, let me go back and take a deeper look into this. And that's how my articulation got going here about eight years or so ago. So here's a different type of articulation. This is one, and remember, locals, it's the program manager that makes the decision on what to articulate and not. Then you take that to your career pathway person who will help you get with the school system or whoever it is to do it. But this one here is not with a school system. It's not with a high school. This one's with a company. This is another way you can do some local articulations. And what I mean is that Lockheed, who I work with pretty heavily, has what they call a soldering tech. And what they do is they come in and they spend 2 weeks on my campus training, because we have Lockheed folks on our campus training the first 2 weeks. And then they go to the Lockheed factory and work on the floor for another 2 or 3 weeks. And then they're put into their position to do soldering. That's basically what they're doing. They're soldering circuit boards. Everything in Lockheed has to be done by hand, mandated by the federal government. So that's why it's so critical. So they get their class 3 reliability. Well, the problem with that is the class 3 reliability takes 2 full years to get. It's not something you can just go to a class and, okay, now here's your certificate, take a written test and pass it and you're done. It's a 2 years on the job training. I mean, you literally have to be on there soldering every day that you're at work in order to get this certificate. And they track at Lockheed how much time these people are spending on soldering. And in about 2 years, they get their class 3 reliability. Well, I don't want to wait 2 years. So what I did is I said, let me see what you guys are doing. So I went out to the Lockheed factory before they moved it over to our campus to do the first 2 years. They had a really nice soldering lab in there, which we actually moved and rebuilt back on our campus. And what I found out they were doing was incredibly high level or high reliability soldering. I mean, they were really doing a lot of detailed soldering, including surface mount, through hole, you name it, they were soldering it. And I'm going like, man, none of these people, if they come into my program, would ever need to know how to solder. And that's where I got the brilliant idea. I said, you know what, why don't we try to see if we can articulate this? So to begin with, I said, let's just do the soldering classes. And then I started thinking, I started looking around and I found the Intro to Electronics. And what it does is it basically talks about, basic things on wiring diagrams, basic electrical safety, basic communications, and it also talks about jobs you could do in electronics. That's what that course is. I'm thinking, man, they're learning that while they're on the job. They know what jobs are available to them, and they'll be placed in one of the jobs that they need to go into. They're also learning about safety and electronic safety and how to control this and how to read the schematics and put the boards together. And I'm thinking, man, this is another course. So what I did was I articulated these 3 courses into my electronics. And what you're going to see here is the high reliability soldering and fabrication is in my required occupational courses. The other 2 are electives, which are 6 hours of electives, which gives them a total of 9 hours. Once they complete the training, they get 9 hours credit coming in. And what that helped Lockheed do was establish the apprenticeship through my electronic specialization. So now a student comes through the soldering and he has to stay there about a year before he can join the apprenticeship. But they are in there and they're soldering, and then they decide, I want to move to an electronics tester. And they said, well, okay, if you want to do that, we do have a pathway. Part of that pathway is you got to spend X amount of time doing certain things on site, because this is a federal apprenticeship. And then you got to go get your 2-year degree at College of Central Florida, or your AS, in other words, in electronic specialization. And if you can do that, then we will hire you on and move you to, we'll hire you into the position of the electronics tester, which is the second highest paying hourly rate in the facility. And so of course everybody's and their brother wants to do it, but I don't get them all. I get a lot of them in there. So 75% of my electronics program is all Lockheed folks, and so that one grew fastest I've ever grown anything as far as a program goes. I did have to make some changes in order to make this happen. My course originally had the COP 1020, which is computer programming, and we use Python. And what I was originally doing with the electronics program was looking at embedded systems using an Arduino. And that's kind of how we did. So you have to know how to program. So one of the languages you can program an Arduino in was, of course, just lost my chain of thought now. was, gosh, I just said it. Now I can't think of it all of a sudden. Anyway, it was part of the program. And then I had already had the elective with 1082 in it. And then I had the 1620 out there as another elective. They wanted to do surface mount, type soldering. And I was going to use that and start teaching those courses as they come along. I'm very lucky to have a really good Nightfire, which sells electronic kits to all the universities in Florida and colleges around. And so we jumped on board with them, and they have all these kits and training stuff for the all these soldering techniques and such. So what I did is I moved my COP from occupational core to an elective, and that just added one a little more elective. So now I have, instead of 6 credit hours elective, I have 9 credit hours elective. So they're going to get 2 credit hours of elective and 1 core class just for going through soldering training at Lockheed Martin. And that has been a big, big thing, because we started it a couple of years ago, and I'm just now starting to get people says, oh yeah, I was there for the presentation that I can get my AS degree and get 9 out. So I'm getting a lot of students all of a sudden flowing in from those original ones we set up. And every time we start a class, we go over the articulation with the students so they know that this is a formal articulation we developed. And it was signed by us and Lockheed Martin. This is just another example of another way to do an articulation. Doesn't have to be physically with a school. And remember, if someone comes in with a certification, you have the right to decide whether you want to bring them in a course. On local articulation, there's another aspect of this you might want to try. I did this with a few students, and it kind of worked pretty good. Let's say I've got one coming from, some high school out of the state that I don't know. Hey, I took this big electronics, we learned motors and controls, PLCs, and, like to articulate that in. I don't have to articulate anything in because I don't know that system. We don't have any agreements with them. So what I do is here's what I will do for you. I will not sign a formal articulation with anybody, but what I will do is I will transfer it in if you can not only send me your transcripts on what you went over, but I'll test you out on a couple of programs just to see if you can write a program or two. Nothing formal, just have them sit down. Can you do this? And it'll be a program that will cover all the things I'm doing in that course, touches on everything. So they could do that, or wiring a control circuit, motors and controls, including the motor and all that, or programming drives or something that they did that they said they did. And I'll just do a quick little test with them, standing right there watching them, and then I will articulate it in. Those are the non-formal articulations you can develop. You don't really need an articulation if they already have a certification, even if they're from out of state. If you recognize that certification and your students get it as well, then credit them back some of the courses on that. So that's kind of the way I look at it when I do my articulations is, do I need an articulation or don't I? With this one here, particular one, I want to make sure everyone is clear with the local company. I wanted a formal articulation because I want a contract saying they're going to send people to me with these skills, and I'm going to take those skills and I'm going to transfer it in. So we both agree and we're all on the same page. That's the importance of setting up an agreement with any school or company, that you fully understand on both parties what you're out to do. It's all spelled out. And to me, that was the most important thing for me to do. So we got that completed, which was really nice. It's been a huge help for my electronics specialization. Here's just a couple of examples of statewide articulations. Electronics to electronic engineering technology, maybe network support services to computer engineering technology. As I said, the basic statewide articulations, there's not much to do with the engineering technology itself. It's more specialized to like electrical, architectural, things like that. However, since I have an electronic specializations, I tend to like this one here. And I don't have anybody teaching electronics in the local area, but you're going to see here in a little bit, I'm adding more articulations this year for next year. And part of them is electronics because one of our high schools, Forest High School, is actually adding electronics portion to their robotics program. And they're going to go into DC, AC separately, solid state. And so I want to try to grab that and pull it in for my, at least my basic survey of electronics, and then go from there. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at now. And so I'm using a statewide articulation as a foundation for a local articulation. And then here's some examples of the gold standard. These course numbers are what I teach. So this is what I'm doing. So if I have somebody who comes in for the AutoCAD user certification, as long as it's within 3 years of the version we're working on. So right now I'm on 2021, and I'll be moving to 2022 next, I think either 22 or 23 next year in fall. One of the companies just upgraded, but I forgot if it was 22 or 23 they moved to. And I try to keep up with the latest, greatest in our area. I still have companies who are working on 15 and 18 and 19, those kind of things. But I try to keep up with the latest, greatest, just so we're on top of our game here if they need it. So one of my hiring employers that hired a lot of students from me is moving to 22. I believe it's 22. So we're definitely going to 22, possibly 23 next year. The SolidWorks user certification. And these are required. If you have engineering graphics or graphics, a program, and you have an AutoCAD user coming in, you have to articulate the 3 credits. These are gold standards. So you can look in and find out if you go to the gold standard, and I'll show you I can show you the website for those of you who want to see it. But the certified SolidWorks user also I use for my 3D modeling using SolidWorks. In these 2 courses, I am actually have my students are going and taking the AutoCAD user and the SolidWorks user and passing those certificates as well. So, if they come in with one, I go ahead and give them credit for these on a local articulation. And of course, the MSSC CPT, we do 15 hours there. Our supply chain technician program, when I get it up and running, I don't know if we'll be able to do 12 credit hours, but for the supply chain associate, I think they credit them over about 12 hours for that one. I just don't know if it'll work in the technician one. I've still got to play around and look at what actually it does cover, but I would like to get them articulated if I could. And I'm going to show you some of the benefits and the thing. So here's kind of my articulation as today strictly for the engineering technology program as of today. And so BHS is Bellevue High School, Westport High School, Forest High School, North Marion High School, with Lakuchi Technical College, which is down in Citrus, and then Dunellen High School. And I'm expanding this out to Levy and Citrus County high schools when they develop their programs. They haven't really got a whole lot of engineering programs going on right now. So notice here, I have 15 hours for MSSC CPT, the only one in any of my service areas that's doing it. He also does the SolidWorks Associate, which gives him a total of 18 hours. And this is from the gold standard. Now, I'm doing another local with him for machining. And because there was no NIMS machining stuff I could articulate in to an ET program, I'm going to establish a local, but I'm going to work off the standards that are already out there at the state to set up my articulation. Westport High School, I do the AutoCAD CWA, which is a gold standard as well. And I bring them in and they get credit for 2 courses here, like I showed you earlier. And then they also do something interesting I didn't even realize. I had about 5 students in the last year come through my Introduction to Engineering, which transfers to UCF as a part of articulation with UCF for engineering courses, not really for a degree, but for engineering courses to start the degree over there. And it's for our AA students, not the AS. But what I found out was the students, I was talking to one student, I said, man, you finished that pretty quick. And he goes, well, I already did this. We use the same book, same material, exactly what you're doing. I've already done this. He said, I just uploaded what I'd already done. I said, you're kidding me. And the instructor, which is Denise Bethea, I had no idea that she was doing exactly what I was doing and followed what I did. So now I want to articulate that in, because some of my AS students take those courses as well, and they're electives. So I can bring another elective in and make that a total of 7 eventually. But right now I articulate as of today 6. Forest High School, I have an AutoCAD articulation, same with North Marion. And then I have with Withlacoochee Tech, which is a technical college down in Citrus, the only one in Citrus with their school system. And I do 9 hours from them. They have 2 programs. They have a journeyman electrician, and the journeyman electrician does motors and controls and PLCs, and also give them the basic, I guess, survey of electronics. Well, they just started an automation program, and guess what they cover? They cover electrical, the electrical, like the survey of electronics. They cover motor controls. They cover PLC, and he's starting to move into machining. And so when they start getting that, I have a certificate for a mechanical designer and programmer for CNC. I'm going to take that and try to articulate that next year. Forest High School is the electronics he's adding in. And then Dunellen High School has a power generation program. Again, the same 9 hours. They do basic electrical, they do motors and controls, and they do the PLC, level 1 PLC. So I've got 9 credits I've articulated there. And his is another program where the students come in and could program a PLC without me even having to do anything. They'd already done everything by the time they got to me. And the only thing I'm adding to him is he does some machining as well. So I'm going to try to articulate 3 credit hours from his this coming. Actually, we'll be doing it here in the next couple of months for the following year. And so totally, if you look at this, I'm doing 15 from, total across the board of all of them for MSSC. I only have 15 hours I'm articulating per student. And like I said, I get 8 students roughly a year from them. AutoCAD, I usually get 1 or 2 from these high schools. I think I got a list of how many I've actually counted up that I got. I usually get a couple of groups of students coming in. I usually articulate about 6 hours, and then 18 hours total on my local. So you can see my goal standards are rivaling my locals. And with the addition of these, I'm going to add another 16 hours this year. So I'm going to end up with currently I'm running 48 plus the 16. I will end up with, almost 60 hours I can articulate in between various high schools and schools and stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at with my program and developing it moving forward. So here's kind of the numbers I'm seeing. It's 5. I'm sorry, 5 from Bellevue High School, and Westport. I usually get about 3 of them. Forest. I usually get 1. North Marion. I'm averaging about 2 a year. So it might be 2 different semesters or something. And in Dunellen High School, I'm getting 1, and with Withlacoochee Tech 1. And I do get other students coming in from out of the region and maybe some other colleges they've gone to, and tons of veterans. The local school system here, Marion County Public School, has the 3 E's. It's employment, enlistment, or education. Those are the 3 pathways they're going through to get in there. And a lot of them will take the enlistment route. Because of the skills they've acquired, they can take those to the military, and they get start going in as an E1 when they enlist. They can go in as an E2 and gain some rank. So a lot of students will take advantage of that, spend 3 or 4 years in the military, and then come out and come back to me and say, hey, what can you do for me? So there you go. We kind of look at that. And I will locally, without an articulation agreement, I will locally look at their SMART transcripts from the Navy, or the ACE records from the Air Force and Army, or something along those lines. So SMART are Navy, and Marines under the Navy as well, and Coast Guard I think follows that as well. So I can look at that and see what skills they did It shows the hours and the coursework they took to get there. And I can articulate that in on my own if I want to do that. So local means you're just free to articulate what you want to do. And you don't necessarily need to have a formal agreement, but I recommend you put some sort of an agreement together if it's a business or school locally. Here are some benefits. Definitely increase my enrollment. You saw there, get about 15, 20 a year. And then a lot closer ties with the high school, because you need to go out there and work with them to get them in. So now you're meeting the instructors and you're getting information from them. And I can't tell you how much I've learned from the high school instructors on some things they're doing that I said, man, I should try that in my program. So you really get in closer ties, and the ties became so close that in Marion County now, we have combined our advisory committees. The local school system and us have combined them into 2 meetings a year where everybody shows up for their advisory committee. So that helped out by doing that a lot. That was been a strong benefit from that. Faster to graduation, which means you can produce more AS per year than graduates for the local industry than you could before. And that's really important because I can't fill all the jobs over here. Improved availability of potential skilled workers. Again, same thing. And then higher wages versus basically a high school diploma. And we go to the high schools, they come to us and we talk about the wages. And our president has a list of what the local high schools make a year, the AS, the BS, and all that. And turns out the highest averaging hourly rate for any of the three is my AS program. I didn't know a clue. He was showing me that. So that was kind of interesting. So, and what that does is with the increased wages, of course, it impacts the economy, local economy. So it's really good. And they don't really need to leave the area to be successful. I got more jobs and I got students to fill. So none of my students ever have to leave. They can have a great life and career in their own backyard. And we try to show them that. Of course, some are going to leave because they want to get out and broaden their horizons a little bit, but that's what it is. What are the drawbacks? Increased enrollment. Right now, I don't have enough equipment to handle everybody. I'm doing like Maury, and I'm having to do heavy scheduling to get people into, I can't have 20 people on one piece of equipment. So I've got to juggle it around, and we're real creative here. I've designed and built a bunch of different little trainers for people to use to try to ease the burden until I can get some grant money to add more equipment in. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Also, if you're using the MSSC CPT like I am, none of those students get the support specialist CCC from the college. A lot of times companies want an entry-level engineer to work with their engineers, and that's a great tool. And it's 18 hours, but I'm giving them 15. So it's not really meeting that 25% to get the graduate from the college. So, it kind of bothers us a little bit with that. So my numbers are not as great in the support specialists as they could be, but they're still pretty strong. It's not bad. And when they go through the core classes, by the way, in my program, they're picking up the MSSC CPT. And Sally has been driving that very, very hard and has made that into a gold mine for us, going back to the state and getting CAPE funding. So it's been real good because of the way she handles things. It's worked out very well. She's got really good success rate on passing. So I'm pretty happy with that. And the only other drawback is when you articulate something in, let's just say you articulate a PLC or a electronics course, motor controls, they're not going to be trained to what your standards are in your program. A lot of times that kind of draws back when you set these local articulations up. And so what I do is sometimes if I don't feel they're strong enough, I'll test them out and see if they really are there. And if I don't feel that they're comfortable, I'll force them. I won't articulate the courses. I'll make them, either go in and take the course, and some feel like they want to take the course anyway, especially veterans, because they have to maintain a full load. So they'll come back and do, they're electronics techs in the Navy. They'll still come back and do every single class. And I'm going like, man, that's a waste of your money and all this. And they go, yeah, but it's been a while since I've seen this. And I got to maintain a full load, and I can't maintain a full load and get my BAQ and all that, which is their living allowance. if I don't take a full load. So I'm going to go ahead and take the course. And then what we found out over many years, over the last 20 years I've been doing this, that if they come back and they do it, they already have a foundation in electronics. Man, it really makes them a super strong foundation. And they end up usually being my top people coming out of my program because they are super strong when they leave the program. And that really makes me feel good. But, you know, some transfers in may not be as strong. One time I had a student, to give you an example, come into my PLC class. He wanted to take my second level PLC class. And he says, yeah, I already took the first one at another college. I said, wow, that's great. I said, how many programs did you write in the course? He goes, oh man, I at least wrote 3 or 4 programs. I said, 3 or 4? And I laughed. He goes, what's so funny? I said, man, in my first program, my students have run 50. They'll probably end up with 80 to 100 programs before they're, he goes, what? I can't do that. And he didn't even come in the program when he heard that. I said, well, I can get you back, but I need you to go back and redo some stuff. And he just said, no, I'm not doing that. You're too hard. I said, that's not hard. I just, it's for simple programs, but I need to make sure you're there. And we couldn't come to agreement. So he didn't come in and I didn't articulate anything. So sometimes that happens. And they got to be trained on your PLCs, your stuff. So if they come in, they've been working on Siemens and they come in with this, and now you're on Allen Bradley, they're not going to be able to do Allen Bradley. So there are some issues with that you're going to have to help retrain them on if you're going to do it. So it is a drawback because you have to spend more time with those students than you normally would. Or you're using different simulation packages than they used. And so they have to be trained on all that. And, you know, these local articulations are, you know, you got to update them every year with the school system. That's most school systems require an annual articulation. Every year I review and update them and we re-sign the contracts and all that. Now, the one with Lockheed Martin, I don't have to do that because nothing ever changes in that. But as programs get axed at the high school, or, you know, I have to maintain and monitor what's going on. So my career pathway person's always send it to me, say, is this still valid? And then I'll go back and check and make sure everything is the same. So that's a drawback for local articulations. Here's my path. I visit, review the high school program. Then I get with the pathway person and say, hey, this is what I want to articulate. So she'll develop that articulation for me. I don't have to sit down and draw it up. She has a format and a standard we use, and she puts it in place. And then once I agree to it, and I review it and agree it, she'll send it to our you know, person who signs off on it, which is sometimes our dean or vice president will sign off on that. And then it goes to the school board for someone, their career person to, you know, CTE person to sign off and make sure that we all agree on the same thing. That's what it is. And then we also, don't forget, there are already in place articulations to the BAS. And you say, well, why are you even talking about that? Because in your local articulation, when the students come in, you need to tell them, hey, it doesn't stop here. If you finish this program, you can go to Daytona State, Valencia College, also FAMU is developing articulations. I'll show you here in a minute. And you can continue on your education. And if you don't want to leave the area, for us, we have a majority of ours are going down to Daytona State, although I've sent a few down to Valencia College, but you know, these are statewide articulations. And what these 2 colleges do is all those occupational cores become and core classes become great technical electives that they can bring into the program with the gen ed. The thing about that is on this statewide articulations, they'll take them in, and if they went to Daytona, they could do all their calculus, physics, all that. But since it's one of the only one I know of that's ABET accredited online at Daytona, I'd say about 85 to 90% of my students are working. They're not and most of them, I got a job when they come into the program. Some of them get it before they even get in. When somebody finds out they're going to the program, they hire them before I even get a chance to talk to them. But you know, that's how desperate we are over here. So you know, I have very few. The ones that aren't going to work are mostly the veterans that want to focus on their education and get it out of the way as fast as possible, and then go in because they already have work experience in their military career. So That's the only ones that don't really want to go to work right away. And then it's local. You know, my students can stay local. They don't have to leave to go to Daytona. And no matter which program you go to, it's a quarter the cost of going somewhere. Now, it may not be so much at Valencia, not quite a quarter, but I still think it's about that because, you know, it's $400 or $500 a credit hour at the university versus 100 something at Valencia. And then you got to look at the fees and all that. And the universities charge a lot higher fees than sometimes we might do that, but they're good. The reason I like Valencia College is a lot of my Lockheed folks go there because not to travel from Ocala down there, but they have a facility down there and they can get a job in that facility, which is very close to Valencia and UCF. And so they will move down there just to get into Valencia College there and still maintain their work. So it's really easy for them to go. So I get a lot of students on the Lockheed side that want to go to Valencia and then UCF after that. The rest of my students will go to Daytona State, and then Daytona State has a great articulation with UCF for a master's program. So I've got several students who've already, one of them went to UF in a master's program. I was surprised that was they took that, but they did. And he got in, and I think he's finishing up his master's at UF now. And so those are the kind of things that you want to look at. The beauty of this is they don't have to leave if they go to Daytona. The other one is your own programs. Well, here's the FAMU one too. They're developing the statewide articulation. We're working with them right now on one for us. And I think it's going to go statewide. But they're also a bit accredited, but you got to go there as of today to get it. But with this articulation, there's a good possibility, since I'm already teaching statics, dynamics, and all that for UCF here, I could do that for them as well. And of course, Ron takes those courses as well too. So I'm thinking, because we're all in the same articulation with UCF, so I'm thinking, you know, this is good, and it's a great minority university. It's one of the top in the country. So especially for engineering, I've worked with a lot of their engineers in the field, and they're very good. So I like their program. The other one is we have a local one, and you probably do too. So here's another option for my students. I get a handful, maybe 2 or 3 in my advanced manufacturing that want to go into the BAS program specifically for their logistics, because Ocala is a dry porter hub, and we have a ton of logistical and warehouse distribution, you name it, we got it here. It's exploded over the last 5 years here on that. So once we got labeled as a dry port hub by a third party, that just exploded. So some of those are going on to be the supply chain technician level, and they want to manage those guys. And so that's what they're going into, is to get that management in there. Sally's group in the quality go in to do logistics, because engineering, quality, and logistics go hand in hand. So that's another option we have here. Cool thing about it, it's local. They don't have to change jobs, do anything. Doesn't cost them any more to go anywhere else. So if they had to go to UF or move down to Orlando or Tampa or someplace to go to USF or something, they're going to have to pay a lot of money to do that. Whether if their parents are still here, they're here, they've got a lot of options, you know, especially if you got family in the area and you have children and all that, daycare is a premium. So, and then here's some of the benefits of the higher education, you know, attract students to the engineering or business degree that wants an engineering and business degree. That's a very attractive to high school students when they realize it's going to be less expensive. Pretty much when they fill out their FAFSA, the Pell Grant's going to pay a majority of it. And some of them have bright futures and other things. And we really focus on scholarships. Lockheed has a bunch of scholarships, and I'm sending them out to all my students. I try to get every single student in my program to apply for it. They don't hand that many out, but I mean, you know, and I usually get 2 or 3 that get the scholarship with Lockheed for the technical stuff. And then Mr. Ma, our local manufacturing association, it's Mid-Florida Regional Manufacturing Association, we call it Mr. Ma. They provide scholarships. The college has some extra scholarship money they throw at. There's the Fluid Power Association we're partners with, give us scholarship money, and they only do like 13 a year, and I've had at least, I think, 2 students get it over a couple of years. So it's really good. You know, I write a lot of letters of recommendation, but you know, it happens, it works out really well. So a lot of them can get a lot of this paid for. And then the local companies here have education benefits. So if they're already working, most of them don't have to pay anything. They get reimbursed for just about everything on their deal. And companies like Lockheed Martin, the day you start working is the day your education benefits kick in. Johnson & Johnson from Jacksonville's down here recruiting hard. We actually have we're going up to visit the plant up there, and I'm taking a couple students with me because they want to, they have one of them has their reserve duty in the Navy up there and wants to work up there. So that's kind of a move there eventually and work up there. So I think that all their benefits start day one, no matter what the benefit is. 401k, medical, everything starts day one. So for them, so that's been a real attraction to students to do stuff like that. So, you know, online like a Daytona State would really mean that, you know, local, which means less cost, much lower cost than a university. You know, it's improved availability of higher educated workforce, because if they stay here and they actually work in the area, man, the economy gets hit even better. So that's why you want to try to do stuff like this. Your own BAS program can be a real gold mine if you don't understand that, because economic impact locally means a lot, especially for us rural colleges like our area is considered rural. We get a big impact from the students graduating. Higher wages or advancement for the student, because the more education they get, the better off they're going to be. They can move up in management, work their way up to some pretty high levels. Increase in, you know, community economic, which I'd mentioned earlier. Some of the disadvantages, with the exception of Daytona State, your BAS program, students or your BAS program, if they decide to go to FAMU, Valencia, something like that, they're going to leave the area. Odds are they're not going to come back because they'll probably get a job in that area somewhere over there. That could be a drawback. We don't get a lot doing that, but we do get some. Even some move to UCF, straight out of my program, go down to UCF and so on. So leaving does mean higher costs for the student, but could be less availability of the workforce. That's the big one for me. If they're leaving the area, I really lose that person unless it's Lockheed transferring from one factory to another. Or if they really want to go down to Valencia or, you know, to go get their bachelor's degree, they're going to have to leave the area, and most of them will have to find another job. I've had several try to commute and nobody was successful with it. They just backed off, and then they end up switching over to Daytona State so they can do it here and stay here and work here. So definitely lower economic impact all the way around. So with that, I pretty much talked about everything that we're doing here and focusing on right now. There's other things we're looking at. I just haven't got there yet to put them in here. But if you guys have any questions, smart remarks, just you can direct them my way. And I think we have a little bit of time, Marilyn. Do you know?
We're at 11:02, but Ernie said
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're almost You're almost exactly right with just anybody who can stay and
yeah, I'm
and
willing.
for
I'm willing to
questions.
stay. I don't have anything
Okay.
urgent, and if you want to stay and go ahead and ask me some questions or what I did to make this happen, just go ahead. I'm ready.
Ernie, are you still on here? Did you have something? Did we lose him? He had put in here in the chat that he had some, but if anybody has to go, you can put your questions in the chat, or you can email them to me and I can get them to Sam.
Yeah, I will definitely email you back. You got my contact information on the screen, so I think everybody's going to get a copy of this, I hope.
Okay, I hear somebody's talking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Hey,
there he is, Ernie.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, everybody. Yeah. Sorry, this is Ernie from FLATE. I was driving, so I was in a dead spot for a minute. But anyway, hey, Sam, great job. I guess I just want to make it clear for, you know, anybody else on the call that this applies to any discipline, right? I mean, Sam was focusing on,
right,
you know, manufacturing, engineering, because that's his focus. But you could use these techniques he talked about to be used for any program. So
yeah,
and actually.
Go ahead, Ernie.
Go ahead. I was going to say, actually, I was going to make a few comments about the benefits, but you did a good job of wrapping that up. you know, one thing I think is important too. Most schools have CE programs, and you mentioned, I guess, the Lockheed would be the CE program for you guys. But that's a great way to attract, you know, more students, like Sam said. So, you know, work with your CE department if you don't already, and see if you can articulate, if it matches, some of that content into your program. But no, nice job, Sam. I think, yeah, did a great job.
Thank you. As Ernie said, I'm just one program. I was going to pull up my articulation, which is about 100 pages. And it's got every single program in our school just about has some type of articulations. I have to dig and find mine. I mean, and when she sent it to me, yeah, your stuff's on page 340 at this, yeah, I'm like, good grief, you know, and I have to scroll down through all the associates in business and, you know, and all this stuff in nursing. And I mean, it's just crazy. They've got so much going on. And with articulations, our school is really, really big into that. And so, you know, if you're not doing an articulation, you need to get on board and make sure. And if you're new, I know Max, you were kind of new. You need to make sure you know if you have any articulations, because you got to be meeting those standards on that articulation. It is a contractual agreement, so you know you need to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. Because I my first year I had no clue what that was or how that they even had that. I know the college before I did, but I couldn't find them. And then someone said, we have to give them credit for this. I said, what? And then they showed me. I go, oh, I see it. Okay, yeah, this is great. That's good. You know, so make sure you know what you have, and then, you know, review it every year, manage it. If I hadn't managed it, I wouldn't have half the students I have now. So, any other questions? If you have any suggestions, I would definitely like to you know, hear them, because I'm always looking for new ways to do stuff too, or anything I might have missed.
Hey, Sam, this is Max. I had a quick question if you have a minute.
Yes, yes.
So I inherited a student who passed the MSSC test,
Uh-huh.
and now he's in the PLC class I'm teaching, and he is clueless on electronics. And
Well,
I asked him how he passed the test, and he said he's just good at taking tests, and he's clearly behind the other students. Is that something you run into?
well, remember,
Do you have any advice
right.
for that?
Right. Remember, you have the Amatrol LMS, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you do is assign him extra work to do. You can count it as extra credit or whatever you do, but I use for my basic electronics, the survey of electronics or intro to electronics, depending on which one you're using, the basic AC/DC, I run the Amatrol. Amatrol has a really good pathway, and you can throw him on, if you have the trainer, you can throw him on that electronics trainer where he's actually putting circuits together and doing it. I use breadboards in mine. I use the electronics version of AC/DC when I do mine, so nobody gets injured or hurt. And then in that same course, I have assigned all my advanced manufacturing students, only them, come and do the laps for the electronics on that AC/DC trainer. If you have it, you know, if you have that, but the material in there actually will walk them through on how to do stuff, and that'll help them get their skill set up very quickly.
That's a great idea, Sam. I appreciate that input. And
Yeah.
definitely he has some catching up to do. I know it's probably sacrilege for me to say anything bad about the MSSC program, but this is my first interaction with it.
You don't know what we've been through, Max. Marilyn will talk to you at the ET forum, but
Right.
and I'll do a Zoom with you later if you want to do it. But the problem with the MSSC CPT is it's not heavy electronics; it just lightly touches it. So I don't like giving the electronics, and that unfortunately, I'm very fortunate that they're coming out of what they call a robotic and design program, a RAD program. And they go over heavy AC/DC in mine, which has not much to do with the CPT. He teaches CPT, but he also teaches other things at the same time. So it's like a broader, thing. So they get the electrical, they're programming PLCs, they're doing everything out of the Bellevue High School that they can do. I don't necessarily articulate the PLC courses because he's a light version of PLC compared to, say, Dunellen High School, who does a very heavy, or with Lacucci Tech, that's very heavy in PLCs. And so I don't articulate those courses in. I don't articulate the PLC class or any of that. They have to take it with me. You know, but the HCDC, they seem to be fairly strong. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them are, you know, it just depends. So you have the right to test them as well. And then tell them, hey, you don't even know how to, you know, do an AC circuit or analysis or anything. You need to go back and do this. And that'll get them caught up a little bit.
Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. I got your message the other day. If you want to do a Zoom meeting, just let me know. I'll give me a time day. I'll be glad to do it with you.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. As I put in the chat, I will send certificates of attendance to those of you that sent me a chat message, and I will also be emailing all who registered for this with the recording and the presentation. So you can reply to that if you have any other questions as well.
All right.
Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Sam. Great
Oh,
presentation.